Seeff, with expertise built through generations of trust.
Vengai Madzima is the senior partner at Madzima Digital Seeff Legal Practitioners, commonly known as MCM Legal. My background is solidly in property law, having lectured on the same at a local institute and headed the department in property. I also have a background in education on property law, having set up diploma modules for the national diplomas in property law. Well, unlike different jurisdictions around the world, in Zimbabwe, anybody with capacity is allowed to buy and sell property. By capacity, I'm talking about anybody above 18 years old and doesn't have a mental disability can buy property within Zimbabwe. Our constitution guarantees the right to ownership of property through obviously our Bill of Rights, and anybody can own their property and they have a right not to have their property taken from them. Real estate rights, well, there are two issues that pertain to rights when you're owning property, be it commercial, residential, etc. We call them real rights or personal rights. Well, real rights in law emanate from something that is registered. In terms of the Deeds Registry Act, we say real rights become real upon registration. And when we're talking about registration, we're talking about the Deeds Registry Office. And when we say the Deeds Registry Office, we say your rights are registered against the world. When the rights are registered against the world, anybody can come to the Deeds Registry Office, check your title, see if there's any mortgage bonds on it, check your title, see who owns the title. You do not have to refer to any other place to be able to confirm this. So those rights are then regarded as real rights because they are real rights against anybody in the world. Whoever wants to come and claim to be that property, all a person has to do is go to the deeds office and verify who's the actual owner of the property. Mainly, there are two types of land in Zimbabwe. We have lands that are capable of sale, which is your land that is normally or eventually registered at the deeds office. This could start from the local authority or from the rural councils, but eventually will be registered in the deeds office. Those lands are capable of sale. They can be bought and sold. And then you have your communal lands, your rural land. In our language, we then say kumusha. That land is not capable of sale. That land ultimately falls under a different regime, which is the Communal Lands Act. Its distribution is governed by different other legislation, which could be the Traditional Leaders Act, where you find your headman or your village headman being your local sabugu, having the rights to settle people and allocate land, but they do not actually have a right to sell the land. You find that that land is inherited from a clan perspective. It will belong to a certain people, a certain family name, and they live and they distribute that piece of land in terms of that traditional custom. But that land ultimately belongs to the president. It does not belong to individuals per se. The documentation that proves ownership, well, like I mentioned before, if it's real rights, you have your title deeds. These deeds will have on them certain things. It could be mortgage bonds, it could be servitudes, whatever it is, but they are all at the Deeds Registry's office. And then you have your cession. Your cession is mainly an agreement between a property developer or a local authority. With a cession, you have personal rights against either the developer or the local authority. So when you have issues of double sale, you have to refer back to the developer or the local authority. Whereas if you're using title deeds, if there's a dispute of ownership, the one who's registered on the title deed is ultimately the owner of that piece of property. The other person who's not registered has personal rights against the person who purports to have sold that piece of land. Parties involved in a sale transaction You have your estate agents, the people who have brought in the parties together. Normally they do the initial due diligence and the drafting of the agreements. You have your conveyancers, the lawyers responsible for the transfer of the property from one party to the other. You also have you may have another team of lawyers who are there just to register mortgages, if there are any mortgages that will be registered with the transfer process of the property. And you have your funders, if you are getting the property through a loan. So all these parties have to work together to ensure a seamless transaction. It's a reputational issue. You will find Seeff, first of all, they've got offices. They're a subsidiary or franchise of Seeff South Africa. So they've a need or a requirement to maintain reputation. They've been there for a very, very long time. And from my own investigations, you find that they are also looking at posterity issues within the organization. So you find some managers have their children that have been incorporated into the Seeff brand. That, at first glance, tells me that they are a company that are looking at working for the long term, and that's what you need when you're purchasing a property.
Seeff, with expertise built through generations of trust. Home is our story.